Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Japan Foundation Touring Film Program's associated talk. My name is Junko Takegawa, Senior Arts Program Officer of Japan Foundation London, and then I'm responsible for the programming content. As a result of a pandemic and lockdown in the recent years, we have learned new ways of meeting people using a digital technology. However, before that, we did indeed physically invite guests from Japan. Today's speaker, film director Miss Yuki Tanada, was one of them. She was in the UK for the Cowards Who Look to the Sky, which was part of the Japan Foundation Touring Film Program 2016. This film is still one of the all-time best for me. For the 2023 version, once again, her fabulous work, My Broken Mariko, was included, and I am delighted to welcome, if not physically, Miss Tanada once again to our talk event, reflecting the creative process not only of the My Broken Mariko, but also her past work general. This event will be able to give you an opportunity to look back at her remarkable filmmaking skill, as well as her achievement and how she has evolved so far. She will be having a conversation with Professor Kate Taylor-Jones, University Sheffield. Thanks so much, both of you, for sharing your time. Ida-san, next slide, please. Yes. This event is made possible with assistance from Miss Miki Zeze, Kadokawa Corporation, and then distributor of My Broken Mariko. Thank you so much for your help. Next is housekeeping matters. Today's event will be recorded as we are using a webinar function. Your names will not be viewable by other attendees. However, I strongly recommend you to keep your audio video muted throughout, just in case. If you have any questions for the panelists, please use the Q&A function to send in your question at any time. Remember, the attendees' questions may be seen by everyone else so that you can upvote a particular question placed by another person which you would like answered, or if it is the same as yours. Simply click the thumb up icon next to the question you wish to upvote. Unfortunately, due to time restrictions, we may not be able to pick up all the questions you asked, so my apology in advance. Lastly, as always, we will send you an online questionnaire, so please spare a short moment to complete it for our future event. Thank you so much. So I now hand it over to Kate and then Tanada-san, and Tanada-san will be interpreted by Bethan Jones. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Junko, for that lovely introduction. Thank you all for joining us here today. It's really wonderful to see everybody with us in this online virtual environment, which is great. And of course, thank you to Tanada-san, who has agreed to join us today. So, as Junko said, a brief overview of this event, Tanada-san and I will engage in conversation for around 35 to 40 minutes, and then there'll be a chance for you to ask some questions. I'm sure many of you here are a huge fan of Tanada-san's work, so please do make use of the Q&A function which Junko mentioned so that we can try and get your thoughts and opinions at the end as well. So very quick overview of the director here today. After studying filmmaking at the Image Forum in Tokyo, Tanada-san wrote, directed and starred in Moru, an independent film which actually won the grand prize at the 2001 Pia Film Festival, a highly impressive achievement for a first product. Tanada-san has worked extensively as a film director as well as novelist, scriptwriter and director. Her 2004 romantic comedy, Moon and Cherry, Suki no Cherry, was selected by the BFI as one of the 10 greatest Japanese films of the 21st century. Her recent works include 1 Million Yen Girl in 2008, which was honoured with the Directors Guild Japan New Directors Awards, Cowards Who Look to the Sky in 2012, which Junko has already mentioned, My Dad and Mr. Ito, 2016, and Romance Doll, of course, in 2019. Her latest film, My Broken Mariko, has already seen her win for Best Screenplay at the Fantasia Film Festival in 2022, and of course has been touring as part of the Japan Foundation programme, and I hope that you've managed to all see this wonderful film. Tanada-san and Cat. I'm a big fan of cats, so it's always lovely to see a fellow feline lover. It's really wonderful to have you today as part of this programme. I'm a huge fan of your work. So I would like to hand over to you to perhaps quickly introduce yourself to the audience, and then we will see your new film's trailer.
はい、映画監督の棚田由紀です。猫は昼寝と言います。英語で昼寝ってなんて言うんでしょうか。ちょっと字幕がないみたいなので申し訳ないんですけれども、マイブロークンマリコのトレーラーをご覧ください。
Thank you for the introduction. I am TANADA Yuki, film director, and the cat is Hirune, which means nap. The trailer doesn't have any English subtitles apparently, but let's check it out anyway.
その日死んだイカ川マリコという人は私のダチだった。
しーちゃんとずっと一緒にいる。
今度こそ私が助ける。待ってろマリコ。マリコの遺骨は私が連れてく。話せよ！行こうマリコ。
聞いてよしーちゃん。私が悪いんだって。私のせいなんだって。
感覚ぶっ壊れてんじゃねえの。
そうだよ。私ぶっ壊れてるの。
ねえマリコ、今からでも私にできることないの？
ねえねえしーちゃん、行ってみたいね。
平気よ、もう怒られっこないわ。だから行こう、二人で。ひったくり！
大丈夫ですか？
大丈夫なわけあるか！ 私何度もあの子のことめんどくせえって。
しーちゃんといる時みたいに何の心配もなくいられたらいいの。
マリコ、私には正直あんたしかいなかった。
マイブロークンマリコ。
死んでちゃわかんないだろ！
Wait for everybody to reappear, the joy of online as we move between the kind of various spaces. I really enjoyed this film. I read the manga when it first came out with students, and I think this is such a wonderful adaptation of this story. So of course, for those who aren't aware, it's based on a manga and a web series by Waka Hirako. And I was hoping perhaps just to start off before we kind of get into the details, maybe you could tell us more about why you decided to focus on this manga and about your process of adapting it, obviously from the original manga format into the film, which we've just seen the trailer of.
これは原作が発売されてすぐ、もう発売当日に読みまして、で、主人公のシーノが、なんて言うんでしょう、本当に必死で、生きようとする力に感銘を受けて、これをぜひ映画化したいと思って、すぐ映画化に向けて動き出しました。
I read the manga the day it came out, and I was so struck by how passionately Shino is trying to live her life, that I immediately took steps to try and turn this into a movie.
Brilliant. Was there a kind of process you underwent taking the manga that you kind of literally the steps of obviously securing the rights and then maybe deciding, was there an editing process that you went through, or did you just want to kind of translate the manga exactly as it was onto the screen?
映画化したいと思って、もう読み終わってすぐ、なので発売当日にもうすぐプロデューサーに映画化したいという連絡をしました。で、原作権が取れるかわからなかったんですけれども、他にもたくさん原作権、これを取りに来た人がいたみたいなんですが、なんとか私たちのチームが原作権を取ることができて、できました。まずここまでにしておきます。
So I knew straight away that I wanted to make this into a film. So the very day that I read it, which is the day the manga came out, I told the producer, and I didn't know if we'd get the rights, because apparently there were a lot of other people going for them as well. But in the end, my team did manage to get those rights.
で、漫画が、そんなに長い話ではなかったんですね。一巻の中の、まあ、半分を少し超えるぐらいの長さで、一番、こう、脚本を書くにあたっては、少し映画にするにしては尺が短すぎると、そのままやると。なので、尺を伸ばすためにどうしたらいいかという考えていきました。ただ原作の良さを絶対に損ないたくなかったので、原作にあくまでも寄り添いながら映画としてどういうふうに尺を足していけるのかというところの肉付けをやっていく感じでした。
The manga itself isn't very long. It's only about half a volume. And so it was a little bit short to make into a full-length feature film. So I started to think about how I could make it longer, but I didn't want to lose the essence of the manga. So I tried to flesh it out, make it a bit longer whilst remaining faithful to the manga.
Brilliant, thank you. I mean, what strikes me in the film is, of course, there's this endless cycle of very poor treatment of these young women, and that's in the work environment where they're bullied and harassed and, you know, ill-treated, to the family environment, which is neither safe nor pleasant for either of these girls, well, women, but also through to random strangers, such as the mugger who attacked Tomoyo at a couple of points in the film. And of course, something which got a lot of press coverage in the UK was the 2021, the National Institute of Population and Social Security in Japan, of course, did a survey and found that a vast number of young people, especially young women, are actually saying that they're rejecting marriage and partnership as options as they develop through life. They want to kind of put their lives into a very different pathway from what perhaps was traditional. And what I find about your film, My Broken Mariko, but indeed many of your earlier works as well, from 1 Million Yen Girl through to Cows Who Look to the Sky, they reflect the real life sense of alienation and loneliness that clearly a large number of people feel in Japan, but also I think globally. So I wanted to really kind of hear a bit more from you about this idea of alienation and loneliness and how you see it kind of working throughout the films you have done, but particularly in the most recent feature, which we're talking about today.
そうですね。この時代になってようやく少し今まで力が弱いとされてきた人たちが少し声を上げやすくなったのだなというふうには感じます。ただ昔からずっとあったことが今少し声を上げやすくなったというだけなんだろうなと思っています。で、そのマイ・ブロークン・マリコという作品に惹かれたもう一つのポイントになるかもしれないんですけれども、弱い状況ということに対してシーノがとにかく反抗しようとするっていうところがあって、なんでしょうね、弱い立場っていうのは必ずしも女性だけに限らず、子供であったり、その男性でもその力の強い人から弱い人へこうちょっと牙を向けられたりというか、そういうことがあると思うんですけど、そういったことにただただ嘆き悲しむのではなく、どんなに自分の力が及ばなくても、こう歯向かっていくシーノという人を何とか描ければなと映画の中で感じながら作っていきました。
I think that we're finally in a place where those in a traditionally weaker position are finding it easier to raise their voices. But this has been going on for a long time, and it's just that it's a little bit easier now to speak out about it. One other reason I was drawn to My Broken Mariko was the way that the character of Shino fights back on behalf of people who are in this position of weakness. And these people aren't necessarily women, they're children, they can be men as well. But she's not just sitting back and lamenting the situation, but she's trying to fight against it, however weak she herself may be.
おそらく、原作者の平子さんと話したわけではないんですけど、おそらく平子さんの中のとても、こう、個人的な思いが詰まった作品なのかなと思っていて、で、それがたまたま今のその世の中の流れと、その疎外感であったり孤独感ということに関して、その今の時代とマッチしたのかなというふうに思います。
I've not spoken to the manga artist Wakahiroko directly about this, but I think maybe there's a lot of her personal experience in the manga, and that's possibly a reason why it does seem to reflect the alienation and the loneliness you mentioned that exists in society.
Thank you. One thing, kind of having seen quite a few of your features, I think My Broken Mariko, this kind of idea of alienation, kind of loneliness, could very much be seen as a road movie. So for those that haven't seen it, the main protagonist, of course, collects, I think there's no spoilers here, collects her friend's ashes after her friend has committed suicide and heads to the sea with them in an attempt to almost kind of give both women, although one is deceased, a kind of a new sense of purpose. But this is not your kind of first, I'm going to call road trip film, because you've got 1 Million Yen Girl, so the central character, of course, always on the move. Round Trip Heart, so you take the female protagonist again on the road, and the train again, kind of endlessly kind of moving towards something. So is there something about women on the move, traveling as a means of self-discovery, that appeals to you? And if so, maybe you could tell us a bit about why.
そうですね。やっぱり今、自分がいる場所から違うところに行くと、これはまあ、これを聞いていらっしゃる皆さんもそうかもしれないんですけど、少し気分が変わるというか、その気分が変わることで、その自分が抱えている問題が、すごくその後、良くなるっていうことは決してないとは思うんですけど、でも自分の気持ちが少し変化すると、その後、もうほんのちょっとでも、生きやすくなることがあるかもしれないなというふうには思っていて、なので、ロードムービーって結構撮影するのが大変なんですけど、結構好きなんだろうなと、無意識で私はやってるんですが、好きなんだろうなと思っています。
Well, taking yourself from the place where you are now to a different place is something maybe you've experienced yourself, but it can serve to change your mood. And that doesn't mean that your problems are going to be solved by any means, but just by changing the way you feel, life can get ever so slightly easier as a result. So road movies are hard to film, but I think I like them. I think it's unconscious, but it appears that I do like road movies.
作品今振り返ると、100万円と苦虫女は、積極的にどこかに行きたいっていうよりは、今いる場所から逃げたいという、ちょっとネガティブな発想から、いろんなところを転々として、その中で主人公が何かを見つけていくという話の作り方をしていて、マイブロックンマリコは、明確な目的地があって、そこに行って、ただそこに行って、さっき言ったこととちょっと重なりますが、そこに行ったところで、自分の人生が良くなるとはも思ってはいなくて、でも行くんだという強い意志で行っていると。で、ロマンスに関しては、列車の、なんて言うんでしょうね、お弁当とか売ったりする人なんですけど、列車の中でお弁当を売ったり、彼女自身はいつも同じところ、箱根から新宿までを毎日往復して、彼女の移動って実は毎日それだけで、ロマンスの主人公に関しては、旅をする人のお手伝いをする人という、で、その人がちょっと万引きをした男性を捕まえようとして、 彼女の中の行って戻るみたいな日常からちょっとはみ出してというような作り方をしていて、3本ぐらいロードムービー作ってますけど、なんか自分、無意識でしたけど、割とこう違うものを作ってるんだなと思いました。
The three films that you mentioned, the first is 1 Million Yen Girl, and in that film, it's not like the protagonist wants to go somewhere. She's trying to escape from where she is now. So it starts with that negative idea, and then she goes around different places looking for something. With My Broken Mariko, they start with a clear goal in mind. And as I mentioned earlier, Shino doesn't believe that going there is going to make her life better, but she goes anyway. And then the other film, Round Trip Heart, the protagonist is a lady who sells bento boxes and so on the train, and she goes backwards and forward every day between Hakone and Shinjuku on this train, and that's the only place she goes. So she is someone who helps other people to travel, but then in the film she's trying to catch this thief, and she ends up taking a different route to the one that she takes every day. So I've took her on a different journey. So those are the three films that I've made unconsciously into three different kinds of road movies, I guess.
Brilliant, thank you. I think it's really interesting, kind of, as you said, Shino Tomoyo doesn't have the sense that this road trip is going to kind of make her feel better. Yet at the end, I think, of the film, although she's clearly still saddened and she's clearly damaged by what's happened in her life, she does seem to have found a kind of sense of peace, which will allow her to move on with the next stage of her life. And I think some of your other films, Cowards Who Looked at the Sky, because obviously Junko mentioned you toured with this a few years ago as part of this, Moon and Cherry, My Dad and Mr. Ito. I think all of these films, the female protagonists, in some ways it's almost a bittersweet ending. It's a complicated ending. But I was wondering, do you feel it's important to have your female characters end with a sense of a future? And that's something I often take away from your films, that hardship has happened, but hopefully the next stage will be different. The next stage will be more positive in their lives.
はい。終わり方はいつもどういうふうに終わるかなっていうのは、いつも悩んでいて、ただ、私がいつもこうしたいなと思ってるのは、もう本当に一筋でいいから希望が見えるようにしたいと思っています。で、その希望っていうのは、必ずしもその映画の中で2時間だったら2時間の中の、よかったねっていうことではなくて、映画の中の主人公も、その映画の中での時間を切り取った時間で、その映画が終わった後も、その主人公は実在の人物じゃなくても、きっと彼女のこれからの人生というものがあるんだと想像して、その彼女だったり、その男性が主人公でもそうなんですけど、その主人公たちが自分の足でちゃんと立って歩いていけるだろうなと思ってもらえるようなラストシーンにしたいなというふうにはいつも思ってます。
The ending is always something I put a lot of thought into. And I always want to leave the protagonists with even just a shred of hope. And it's not necessarily that they have got to where they need to go in those 2 hours of the film, if it's a 2-hour film. But I want the audience to be able to imagine that this character has a life beyond the film and a future beyond the 2-hour chunk of their life that we've seen, even if that protagonist is a male character. And I want to leave them feeling that this character can stand on their own feet and will continue to walk forward.
Thank you. Whilst we're still talking, I just want to remind people that there is the Q&A function there, so that when we get to the end of our conversation, I can go straight on to your questions. So please don't be shy. Please feel free to kind of ask some questions, and then we kind of continue the conversation after this. So just keep that in the back of your mind, to kind of the Q&A box is just down there. So obviously you mentioned this idea about a shred of hope at the end. And I think that's what so many people respond to in your work, is that you just give such a wide range of female experience of voice, and in both a positive and negative way, from the cosplay obsessed housewife and cows who look to the sky, to obviously a woman involved in a relationship with an older man, which their father approves of, in My Dad and Mr. Ito, which I have to say is one of my favorite films. I think it is just a charming, charming film. So I really, really love that one. What I think is so impressive is that none of your characters, male or female, are ever two-dimensional. You always seem to present to us complex, but very fully formed characters. You know, they're not just stereotypes. They are really kind of intricate, even if they're just on the screen for a short period of time. I think in My Broken Mariko, it would have been very easy for these two women to become stereotypes of female sadness. And we were discussing this because I obviously teach East Asian cinema to a wide range of students. And several of the students thought, so I'm kind of bringing their ideas to this meeting as well, is that the way you do this, obviously you have incredibly strong and wonderful scripts, but also your actual film style itself, how you kind of go about directing these features. It tends to avoid dramatic film language or melodramatic camera angles. There's no kind of, kind of rapid chase scenes as you see in other types of films. So I was wondering if you could just give us an overview, for those who are not aware, of how you approach your filmmaking style. Now that could be on the set or maybe in post or pre-production. What kind of processes do you go through to kind of bring your visions to life in the kind of technical sense, actually, when you are working with the cameras and director of photography and everything like that?
Hi. 撮影はいつも、なんでしょう。お芝居をまず、日本語では段取りという言い方をするんですが、英語でちょっとなんて言うんだろう。まずお芝居を、台本のある部分からある部分を、撮影現場でやって、その俳優のお芝居を見た後にカット割りを決めていきます。まずそこまでにしておきます。
So when it comes to filming, we always run through the scenes on set, and then I will decide on the shots.
で、カット割りを決めて、カット割りが決まったら、順番で撮っていくんですけど、多分私が、珍しいとちょっと言われるのは、これは昔の日本の映画監督のやり方というだけなんですが、今はだいたいモニターを見ながらお芝居を見る監督がほとんどなんですけど、私はあまりモニターを見なくて、カメラのすぐ真横にいて、自分の目で目の前にいる俳優のお芝居を見るようにしています。だからといってそれがどういういい効果なのかは私自身はわからないんですけど、そういったちょっとなんて言うんでしょう。ある意味古い撮影スタイルなんだろうなと思います。
And then once I've decided on the shots, then we go through and film them. But what people tell me is unusual about the way I work, and all it is an old-fashioned way of filming, I think, is that I don't watch the monitor like a lot of directors nowadays do. I stand beside the camera. I prefer to watch the actors' performances with the naked eye rather than through the monitor. That's not to say that that's better for any reason, but it's just a more old-fashioned way of filming, I think.
で、あと私は、撮影が終わった後の編集とか仕上げの作業もすごく好きで、編集に関しては、監督によるとは思うんですけど、映画はあるのかな。テレビドラマだとよくあるんですけど、結構徹夜してずっと編集する方もいるみたいなんですけど、私は絶対に 午後から、編集は午後からやって、夕方には終わるという、それで一日、ちゃんと家でご飯を食べて、寝て、また起きて、編集室に入ってというサイクルで、絶対に徹夜しないようにします。徹夜しないようにするっていうのは、撮影においても、極力徹夜しないようにしています。どうしてもなんかその撮影のスケジュールがぎっしり詰まってしまった時はちょっと遅くなってしまうのは仕方がない時もあるんですが、とにかく日本の撮影環境っていうのは結構な劣悪な状況なんですけど、その劣悪な中でも多分私徹夜したことはほとんどないと思います。はい。
And then once the filming is done, I really enjoy the editing and the post and then the production process. And I think it depends on the director how you go about doing that. And I'm not sure about film so much, but definitely with TV series, you will often get people staying up all night doing editing. That's not something I do. I get my editing done in the afternoon, finish by the evening, go home, have dinner, get some sleep, and come back in the morning. I really try to avoid working through the night. Even when we're filming, I try to avoid that. There are times when we're really pressed for time and I end up having to stay up late, but filming in Japan is a really tough environment, but I can say that I've hardly ever worked through the night.
イギリスの撮影スタイルを知らないので、逆に、ちょっと知りたいぐらいですね。
What's it like in the UK? Actually, I don't know what it's like in the UK.
I think it depends on what budget you have, like most of these things, but most of the people I engage with tend to work in television or on smaller budget features, and they work tirelessly through the night, through the day. It's a hard life, I would say. So I think it's really admirable that you manage to kind of try and keep a work-life balance by kind of keeping the nights as a bit more sacrosanct for kind of other ideas. So
いや、多分、もうね、徹夜すると私が持たないっていうだけです。
I just wouldn't be able to keep going if I worked through the night.
yeah, that's how I feel about it, which is why I became an academic rather than a filmmaker. Thank you. Of course, as a director, you've obviously very well known as a director, but you're also an extremely well-known and award-winning screenwriter. And of course, you've written the scripts for a number of your own features, My Broken Mariko, Moon and Cherry, Tokyo Girl, Romance Doll. And I believe you did the adaptation of Ninagawa Mika's Sakuran, which was, of course, also an original manga. And you've written several novels. So you clearly enjoy the writing process, and you clearly have a tremendous talent in that area. But I was wondering if you find it easier to direct the works when you have written the screenplay yourself, or do you really see your role as director completely separate from your life as a writer?
そこが難しくっていい面もあれば、悩む時もあります。自分で書くにあたっては。
That's a hard one. There are things that are easier when I've written the script myself, but there are also things that are harder.
人が書いている脚本を取るっていうのは、やっぱりものすごい責任感がより一層あって、この脚本をより面白く取らないといけないというふうな、プレッシャーと、あとはどうしても役者の整理で、このセリフが言いにくそうだなっていう時に、このセリフをちょっと変えていいかどうか、私じゃない人が書いてる場合は、結構悩みながらやります。
When I'm working with someone else's script, I feel a bigger sense of responsibility to do a good job. And then when an actor says that they find a particular line tricky or hard to say, it's harder to know whether I can change it when it's not me that wrote it in the first place.
でも一番私じゃない人が、別の人が書いてるのでいいところは、悩んだ時に、一番相談できる相手がいてくれるというのは、ちょっと心強かったりします。
But the good thing about working with someone else's script is that when I don't know something, or when I'm struggling, there's someone there that I can ask, and that's what's good about having someone else's script to work with.
で、自分で書くと、いいところは、自分で書いているので、撮影現場で修正がしやすいというのは、非常に楽です。
When I'm working with my own script, one of the best things is that when changes need to be made on set, I can do that. It's easy.
でも、自分がいつも完璧な脚本を書いているということでもないと思っているので、自分が迷った時に、なかなかその解決方法を見出すまでが結構自分一人だと苦しいなと思う時はあります。
But my scripts aren't perfect, so when I'm struggling, when I have questions, it can take me quite a while to find the solution and the answer.
なのでどっちもいい面もあれば、難しいなと思う両方の面があって、私は両方やることがそれぞれ毎回勉強になるっていうか、いつも自分に足らないところを毎回発見できるなと思ってます。
So they both have their good points and their challenges, and by doing both, I get to learn from both every time and realize the things that I still need to learn.
That's amazing. Thank you. One final question for me, and then I'll throw it open to the audience because I see we've got a couple of questions there. Perhaps this is a slightly crass topic, but it's the topic of money. So over the years, I've spoken to quite a few female directors, both from Japan, China, Korea, and the UK, indeed. And a theme that has always returned is the complexities of securing budget for their work. And this can be for women who actually have quite a number of films under their belt. And I know you've spoken about it before in previous interviews I've kind of read. But you're now a very established name. I think, you're award-winning. People are very well aware of your work globally. So have you found that your ability to secure space, money, and time to make your films easier? Do you feel the industry is now more willing to consider, should we say, mid-range budget films as an important investment area? Because I know for a long time it seemed to be you'd have a small budget and then mega budgets. And it's that middle bit which kind of really was suffered, and that whereas a lot of women lay. So I was just wondering how things have changed for you in terms of being able to access, the support that you need to get your works made.
全く予算上がらないです。上がらないどころか下がっていると思います。で、二極化はもっと進んでいて、中規模の予算で割と自由度が高いということも減ってきてしまって、これはちょっと本当に日本の映画業界自体、映像業界ですね、テレビの方もそうですし、問題だなと思っているのが、一度その安い予算で、現場のスタッフは頑張っちゃうんですよね。自分の責任を果たそうとして、すごく頑張って、なんとかその予算で作るんですけど、で、そこそこいいものができると、なんだ、この予算でできるんだって思われちゃうところがあります。
Budgets are not going up. Budgets are actually coming down, and it's becoming even more polarized. And in that mid-range, even in that mid-range, you have less and less freedom. In the Japanese film industry and the TV industry as well, that's the problem. And because even if you only have a small budget, you will do your best to work within that budget, and the crew will feel responsible for producing a good film, and so they do. But the problem then is, once you've produced something good on a small budget, then people think, well, you only need a small budget.
で、これは、プロデューサーが悪いわけでもなくて、会社の方針と、あとは、なんでしょう、日本の国民性もあるのかもしれないですが、安くできるなら、それでやってよっていう風になって、なんならもっと次はこの予算でできたんだったら、次はもっと小さい予算でできるでしょっていう風になっていってて、本当に良くないなと思ってます。
It's not the producer's fault. It's company policy and maybe a bit of a Japanese character coming out there. If you can do something cheaply, do it cheaply, or do it even more cheaply the next time, which is I think is not good.
ちょっとね、暗い話になっちゃうかもしれないですけど、私がやっぱり一番悩むのは、やっぱり自分がこの作品をやりたいと言って、で、このスタッフとやりたいと、いろんな人に声をかけたとして、でも予算があまりないと、やっぱりちょっと自分でもちょっと考えてしまうんですよね。そのスタッフに声をかけていいのかっていうのが、なぜかというと彼らにも生活があって、子供がいてとかっていうことを想像すると、なんか私がやるって言わない方が良かったのかなとか、そういう悩みはもう毎回尽きないんです。
And not to bring down the mood, but the biggest problem for me is if I want to make a film and there are certain people that I want to work with and that I want to approach, I find it difficult sometimes because I know that I don't have the budget, and I think, can I really approach them? Because I know that they've got children and they need to make a living, and maybe it's best not to get them involved.
ただ、なんか、だからといって、ただ作り手を嘆いてるだけでもいけないと思っていて、やっぱり日本という国は、イギリスももしかしたらそうかもしれないですけど、これからどんどん人口が減っていくんですよね。そうなった場合に、これはもう本当に10年以上前から私ずっと言ってて、なかなか日本の映像業界変わらないんですけど、やっぱり映画っていうのはたくさんの人に見てもらって、テレビもそうですね。ドラマもそうです。たくさんの人に見てもらって、やっと、なんて言うんでしょう、作った意味があると思っているので、やはり日本の映像業界って国内にしか、あまり目を向けないんですね。なので、やっぱりそれではダメだと思っているので、それに気づき始めてる人たちっていうのは、日本の中にもいると私は信じているので、そういった人たちと、じゃあもっともっといろんな国で、上映してもらったりするにはどうしたらいいかっていうのを、これからもっともっと考えていかないと、日本の映像業界の未来はあまりよろしくないんじゃないかなと思っています。これはもしかしたらイギリスも似たようなことがあるかもしれないですけど。はい。
But having said that, in Japan and possibly in the UK as well, I'm not sure, the population is declining. And now this is something I've been saying for the last 10 years and it hasn't really changed. But a film or a TV show doesn't mean anything until people watch it. And you want as many people as possible to see it. And the Japanese film industry has really only looked at the domestic market. And there's not enough people watching the films. I do believe that there are people now starting to realize that and starting to think about what we need to do to appeal to other countries to have our films seen there, but we need to give that a lot more thought. Otherwise, I just don't think the Japanese industry has a bright future. And I don't know if that applies to the UK industry as well.
I think it probably depends on who you ask. I think there's certainly groups of people which kind of feel that the pathway of the UK film industry, there are some problems. I'm conscious it's 2:15, but possibly linked to this, because one of the questions we have here is from Irene, who was somebody who interviewed another director last week. She says, since your debut as a film director in 2000, do you think working conditions for women have changed in the Japanese industry, and in which way? Now, obviously, you mentioned budgets, and that clearly is impacted on everybody, and the contrast between domestic and international. But particularly for women, do you think things have got better, worse, or static?
労働環境が、そうですね、良くなったかどうかはわからないんですけど、女性の、監督に限らず、女性のスタッフは、ものすごく増えてきました。私が映画を撮るときは、スタッフの半分は女性ですね。ただ、女性の場合はどうしても、ライフワークとして、結婚や出産ということがあったりした場合、どうしても、これはどんな仕事でも一線を離れる時期があるということがあるのが影響しているのか、各パートのトップにまで行く人はまだやっぱり少ないなと。昔よりは増えてきてるんですけど、まだまだ少ないなと思っています。例えば、キャメラマンは少し昔より女性のキャメラマン増えてきましたけど、あとは照明の技師の一番照明のトップですね。ライティングマンで女性は、まだ一番上の人は私は会ったことはない。その一個前のチーフだったらいるんですけど、ただ、私が知る限りは、私がよく一緒に仕事をするスタッフの人たちは、本当に優秀だなと思います。本当に。あと、やっぱり強いですね。女性強いなと思います。
I don't know if the working environment has got better, but there are a lot more women, both directors and in all the other roles now. I would say half the crew on my films are women. But you do find, of course, that as in any walk of life, that at some point a lot of women will get married, have children, and leave the profession for a while. And so you still find that in the top jobs of each department, each role, there are still fewer women. There are more than there were before, but there are still fewer than men. There are women camera operators, for example, but it's rare that the top person in that department will be female, and the same with lighting. Although the second level may be a woman. So that's my experience, and my experience is that the women I work with are very, very good and very strong.
Brilliant, thank you. I'm looking through the other questions. What I'm going to do is combine two of them. Lots of people would be interested to know what made you decide to become a film director, and whether it was difficult to initially enter the industry. And do you have any advice for any inspiring directors who are hoping to kind of enter the filmmaking world?
はい。どうして、私最初映画監督というよりも、それよりも最初舞台の方に興味がありました。でもなんか舞台を、今も見るのは好きですけど、なんか自分が作るとなった時に、なんとなく映像の方が面白そうだなというふうに思って、それでなんかこの業界に来たような感じです。なので本当にもう10代の頃からものすごくたくさんの映画を見て、もう10代の頃から絶対に映画監督になると決めてなってたわけじゃなくて、あっちかなこっちかなってフラフラしながらこの 仕事に行き着いたという感じでした。ただ、映画監督になりたいなと思った時に、なりにくいかどうかっていうのを全く実は考えたことがなかったんです。なれなかったらどうしようっていうことを多分私一度も考えたことが今思い返すとなかったなと思います。
Well, initially, I was actually more interested in theatre than in being a film director, and I still watch a lot. I love going to the theatre, but when it came to actually making something myself, I thought it might be more fun to make a film. So it's not like I watched loads of films in my teens and I always knew that I wanted to be a film director. I vacillated, and this is where I've ended up. You asked whether it was difficult to become a director, and that's not something I thought about really. Thinking about it now, I don't think I ever wondered what I would do if I didn't make it.
もしかしたらこれ見たり聞いたりしてる人たちの中で、若い人もいれば、もう若くないけど、映画作りたいなと思ってる人もいるかもしれないんですけど、そうですね。アドバイス、なんだろう。慣れるとか慣れないとか関係なく、やりたいと思ったことはやった方がいいと思います。人生って本当に短いと思うので、本当になんかこう、よくね、これおじいちゃんとかおばあちゃんとかもしかしたら皆さん聞いてるかもしれないですけど、やっぱりでもそういう人たちと同じことになりますかね。やっぱり、やらなかったら後悔すると思います。で、やっても後悔すると思います。どっちの後悔の方が、自分が納得できるかなと考えて、自分の進むべき道を進んでいったらいいんじゃないかなと。もちろんその映画に限らず、自分こういうことやってみたいなと思って、絶対どの道に進んでも絶対後悔ってあると思うんです。でも、なんだろう。自分が納得がいけば、納得のいくように、まあ、なんとかやっていくしかないので、なんか、やっとけばよかったっていう後悔が一番しない方がいいかなと思ってます。
As for advice for young people who might want to be film directors, or not young people who might want to try making films, I think don't think about whether you're going to make it or not. If you want to do it, just do it. Life is short. Maybe we have older people watching as well, and they might agree with me on this. If you don't do it, are you going to regret it? If you do it, you'll have regrets anyway. But which of those regrets do you want to live with? That's how you decide what you want to do, not just with regards to film, but anything in life. Any path you take will have regrets, but you need to be able to live with the regrets that you choose. And I think the worst regret is regretting not doing something.
Thank you. I think that's a very good motto for everybody listening generally. So looking down the questions, we have one for JD MacArthur, who asks, if you were given unlimited funds, back to money again, would you change the type of movie you would make?
まず、スタッフのギャラを上げたい。
I'd start by paying my staff more.
で、作品、そうですね。やっぱり、いい機材を使えたり、一番映画を撮影するにあたって贅沢なことは、時間をかけるということだと思っています。なので、 時間をかけて撮りたいです。何も派手な仕掛けをやるとか、そういったことが、もう CG を全部 CG でやるとか、そういうお金のかけ方ではなく、時間をかけて丁寧に撮るということが、ものを作るにあたっては、特に映画を作るにあたっては、一番贅沢なことだと思ってるので、お金があるのなら、時間をかけて撮りたいです。
I would use good equipment, and the biggest luxury when you're filming is time. So I would really take my time. I wouldn't do anything flashy. I wouldn't go all CG, but that is the biggest luxury. And so if I had more money, I would take all the time in the world.
で、スタッフのギャラを上げたいっていうと、私がすごくいい人に見えちゃうかもしれないですけど、もちろん私のギャラも上げますよ。
I said I'd pay my staff more, which makes me look like a wonderful person, I'm sure, but I would also pay myself more.
That's not selfish, that's just sensible. People should be paid for art. I am conscious of the time. I'm hoping that we have the chance for one more quick question. I'm just going to say, yes, we do, just very, very quickly. So somebody's asked, can you please talk about casting? So obviously My Broken Mariko has some wonderful performances from the lead staff. Do you have an idea about how do you cast people for your films, kind of very quickly in the last couple of minutes?
キャスティングは、実は予算というものに深く関わってくるということもあります。これはその映画における一般論にはなりますけど、キャスティングで予算の規模感が日本の映画の場合は、結構影響されることが大きいです。ただ、その時に、じゃあ、お金が集まれば誰でもいいのかっていう話ではなくて、そこはちゃんとそのプロデューサーと話をしながら、この人とやりたいと思える人だったり、この人とだったら、この作品を一緒になって戦えるんじゃないかと思える人、そう思える人と、やれるように、プロデューサーに相談をして、で、私は幸いのことにあまりいや、でも絶対この人で、みたいなことをあまり言われることがなく、話を聞いてくれるプロデューサーと組める、今回のマリコもそうですけど、ことが多かったので、自分がこの人とやりたいという人であることはもちろん、それだけだと正直許されない場合もあって、そういう時はプロデューサーと相談してというような形になっていきます。はい。
Yes, and you're muted. You're muted, honey.
予算とキャスティング、誰がこの役を演じるかによって予算が大きくなるか小さくなるか。例えば有名な人がやればこれぐらい集まるけど、あまりテレビとか出てない人がやると予算はそんなにかけられないというふうに言われたりすることがあります。
The casting actually has an effect on the budget. So if it's not a well-known actor, you might not get as much budget, whereas if it's someone that's very well known, then you might get more. But that's always the way in Japanese films. But that doesn't mean to say that if money were no object, you just go with you could get anyone you wanted. I talked to the producer. If there's someone that I want to work with, if there's someone that I think will fight with me for the film. And in my case, I've been very fortunate. My producers always take my what I want into account, and they've never forced an actor on me that I didn't want to work with. That was the same with My Broken Mariko. They listened to what I had to say. Sometimes you'll want to work with someone and it won't look possible, and in those cases it's a discussion with the producers.
マイブロークンマリコの場合は、長野芽郁さんは、一度仕事をしてみたい女優さんだったので、 彼女に決まってよかったなと思っています。作品規模から言うと、彼女はもっと大きな規模の作品に出ることが多い人だったので、正直オファーしたときは、規模的に断られてしまうかなという心配もあったんですけど、彼女自身が作品を気に入ってくれて、出てくれることになりました。
With My Broken Mariko, the actress who plays Shino, Mei Nagano, is someone that I'd always wanted to work with. So I was very glad to have this opportunity. She usually works in projects of a bigger scale. So to be honest, I was worried that she would turn me down when I offered her the role, but she liked the film and agreed to be in it.
And I think we're very, very grateful for that, because she is really wonderful in this particular role. Thank you to everybody. If we were in a real life thing, everybody would be up clapping you tremendously for some really wonderful answers. And it was absolutely fascinating to hear you speak. Thank you to all the audience. There's some really wonderful questions there. And I know you're virtually kind of going, yay. And thank you to the Japan Foundation for obviously putting this whole event together. I hope you have enjoyed this session. I really have. And obviously, please keep an eye on all the Japan Foundation events, and so you can see what else goes on related to film and other kind of cultural product which they run. So thank you very much, everybody. It's been really great. And we shall hopefully see you all soon in another event at another time. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kate. Such a wonderful, very good questions, serious good questions. And to be honest with you, I didn't realize that you have watched every single works, and the big fan. So I just chose the right person to ask questions. And also that thanks goes to that Tanada-san, second time working for the Japan Foundation program. I still remember very fondly that we traveled together various places.
楽しかった。
Yeah,
楽しかったです。とっても。
yeah, and then
Yeah, that was great fun.
Yeah, I was very grateful. You managed to go around different places. So, I mean, unfortunately, we couldn't actually bring you back physically, but hopefully in the future, that we can actually bring you back to the UK once again. So thank you so much. It's wonderful, insightful talk, even including not just only that the process of our work, but inside the film industry in Japan. So which was very, very interesting. So thank you so much. Ida-san, do you have the slide for the last talk? Yes. One more. Yeah. Yes. Our sort of last talk of this series is the 30th of March, where we invited the film festival directors, programmers, and journalists to come together to talk about that. This kind of sort of issues about whether or not Japanese cinema has been involved. So if you have a time, please join us at the same time, 1 o'clock British summer time. That's booking lines still open. So and also that we send you the questionnaire link immediately after the end of this session. So please complete the questionnaire, which is very helpful for us for a future event. Thank you so much. Kate, can you show up your face again? Thank you. Thank you so much, and have a lovely afternoon. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, Bethan. Bye-bye.